On a smaller table beside the body, dozens of anatomical drawings are scattered. They show the human heart, the brain, the intricate web of veins and arteries, with a clarity that feels like blasphemy. It's a knowledge no one is supposed to have. A knowledge you burn people for possessing. The lie crystallizes in your soul, sharp and cold as glass. They weren't just reading forbidden books, they were writing them. They weren't fighting the seekers of knowledge. They were perfecting their methods in secret. It is a science so advanced it won't be officially invented for another 200 years. 99% of people believe medieval medicine was just leeches and praying over the sick. They never learn about the hidden labs like yours, where the foundations of modern pharmacology were being laid in secret, one forbidden drop at a time. You call your ultimate creation the Philosopher's Stone, not because it perfects metal, but because it perfects the human body. It is a deep, ruby-red liquid that seems to drink the candlelight. They have found a way to make the very earth betray you. What do you do when the one thing that kept you free is now the thing that could get you killed? And now, a secret must be buried. As the guards lead you away, back toward the cold, wet darkness of the tunnels, you know you will not see the sunrise. The king will walk out to his court and proclaim that God has granted a divine miracle. His reign will be strengthened, his divine right confirmed. You will simply vanish. But they can't erase the knowledge. Before they took you, you managed to tear a small piece of parchment from your notes. On it, you scribbled the formula, the ratio of bark to wine, the observation of the pulse. The holiest places in Christendom are built with a geometry the church condemns as pagan sorcery. You are sworn to secrecy, and tonight, the Master is finally showing you why. The wind has teeth this high up. It whips around the half-finished bell tower, a skeletal hand trying to pull you from the scaffolding and dash you on the frozen mud below. You are closer to God here than any priest in his warm rectory, but you are also closer to a death that promises no salvation. The master mason, Elias, pays the wind no mind. A shiver crawls up your spine as you realize the terrifying scale of the secret you are now a part of. The code is everywhere. The cathedrals are not just buildings. They are hard drives, stone repositories of a truth so dangerous it had to be shattered into 1,000 pieces and hidden across a continent. But as the mason stands up, dusting his knees and giving you a look so fleeting you almost miss it, the real horror dawns. They built a system to preserve a message. But what, in God's name, was the message? And you see it. 99% of people imagine medieval monks as simple men, peacefully copying the Bible in drafty rooms. They never picture this. This is not a library. It's an arsenal. Shelves carved into the earth itself stretch into the oppressive darkness. And on them, locked away, are the very things the church claims are lost to sin and time. Your fingers, trembling, brush against a leather spine. It isn't a forbidden gospel. It's a Roman engineering manual. Its pages filled with diagrams for aqueducts and siege engines. Knowledge they preach is long dead. Then you see the long table in the center of the room. A single linen sheet is draped over a long, still form. You feel a gravitational pull, a sick and undeniable need to know. Your hand, trembling, reaches out and grips the rough fabric. You pull. It is a man, or it was. His chest cavity is laid open, the ribs peeled back with a surgeon's care. The organs are not gone, they are merely rearranged, pinned with slender silver needles, each one labeled with a small tag of parchment. The sound is a tiny, rhythmic clockwork of salvation, a soft, wet tick, tick, tick against the glass of the receiving flask. This is spagyrics, a word that would get you burned. It means to separate and to combine. You are separating the soul of a plant from its body, cleansing it in fire and water, then rejoining it into a substance of impossible potency. A single drop of your willow bark tincture can break a fever in hours. Your preparation of poppy can grant a painless sleep to a man with a shattered leg. This isn't magic. It's the subtle systematic removal of self-sufficiency to create a population that is easier to control. You stand at the edge of the woods, the place that was once your salvation, and it now feels like a cage. The same wind blows through the leaves, but it whispers a different word: trespass. The burdock root is still there, waiting in the dark earth. But now a simple act of survival could cost you your hand or your life. The ache in your stomach is no longer a dull friend. It is a cold, creeping terror. The king turns, his eyes wide. He looks from his son to you, and in his face you see a terrifying mixture of gratitude and calculation. You have saved his son. You have also made yourself the most dangerous man in the kingdom. You are the living proof that his power is a sham, that his God was silent when a heretic's knowledge was not. He takes a step toward you, and for a moment you think he might embrace you. Instead, he nods to the captain of the guard. The deal is complete. A life has been saved. What were they really building in the fortified monasteries behind stone walls and sworn silence? What hidden projects were being financed by this river of dirty, sacred gold? For a fleeting second, his finger traces a shape. You feel a jolt, a cold shock of recognition that runs deeper than the chill in the air. It's the same symbol you saw burned into the peasant's floorboard. The same interlocking circles you saw stitched into the hem of the midwife's cloak. This changes everything. This isn't just a few scattered rebels, a lone mason, a quiet weaver. The symbol proves it. This is a network, a coordinated, silent group. Continental conspiracy of knowledge, hiding under the very gaze of the institution sworn to eradicate it. The staircase is a cold, spiraling throat of stone, swallowing you into the monastery's secret belly. The flame from your tallow lamp throws your shadows into a frantic, dancing panic against the walls. Each step down feels like a step away from God. At the bottom, a heavy oak door, banded with iron, stands waiting. The abbot slides the huge key into the lock. You hear the metallic taste of it, the groan of tumblers that haven't turned in a generation. A deep, resonant clack that seems to break the silence of centuries. The door swings inward. It is a human skeleton, standing upright in a wooden frame, every bone wired to the next with terrifying precision. Its jaw is open in a silent scream. Your mind reels. The church preaches that to disturb a body is to desecrate a holy temple, to deny it passage to the resurrection. It is a mortal sin. Yet here is a perfect anatomical specimen, assembled for study. You hear the faint, dry, skitter-skitter clack of a mouse running across its ribcage. An obscene percussion in the dead quiet. That is the only sound. Down here, in the flickering dance of a single tallow candle, you practice a different kind of faith. You are not trying to create gold. You are trying to dismantle God's work and put it back together, better. You are committing heresy with every drop of distilled liquid that falls. Your hands, stained with gentian root and chamomile, are steadier than a surgeon's. You watch the clear liquid bead and drip, one by one, from the beak of your glass alembic. By making it a crime to feed yourself from the abundance of the wild, they forced you into total, desperate reliance on the one thing they controlled completely: the grain. They engineered your dependency. They starved you of your knowledge before they starved you of your food. It's a strategy so effective, it's still used today, hidden in plain sight. It's the patent on a seed your ancestors grew for 1,000 years. It's the food desert in a city, where the only options are processed, packaged, and owned. You lift the boy's head and gently pour the mixture between his cracked lips. He coughs, but he swallows. Now, you wait. The only sound is the wet crackle of the fire and the ragged whisper of the child's breathing. For a long hour, nothing changes. The king's shoulders slump. The priests begin to look vindicated. Then a single drop of sweat beads on the prince's brow. Then another. The heat is breaking. The rasp in his chest softens. The whistling fades. His breathing deepens, evens out. It is no longer the sound of a struggle, but of sleep. You feel no holiness, only the cold, hard weight of a terrible bargain. But as you turn to leave, a thought surfaces, a question you can't push away. This single coin is nothing, but multiplied by millions, millions of desperate souls across a continent, all paying for a sliver of hope. Where does all that money go? It's too much for just wine and robes. It's too vast for just one man's greed. The gold flows upward, through a hidden network of priests and bishops, funding something secret, something the church built with the currency of your fear. A full 97% of medieval cathedrals contain significant geometric and symbolic anomalies, patterns that defy official church doctrine. They are finding a hidden grammar of dissent. This is the medieval equivalent of activists using encrypted apps and coded memes to organize under the nose of a surveillance state. The symbols were their encryption. The architecture was their dark web. The master mason moves from the high perch of the gargoyle down to the forest of pillars on the main floor. He kneels, pretending to inspect the base of a massive column. His hand, dusty and rough, brushes against the cool stone. A hidden ring, slick with grime, is set into a single flagstone. With a shared grunt, you both pull. The stone grinds open, releasing a gust of air from below. It doesn't smell of damp earth or wine cellars. It smells of dust, so ancient it has its own weight, a dry, sharp scent of brittle paper and forgotten time. The cloying sweetness of incense from the chapel above tries to follow you down, a holy perfume for an unholy place, but it cannot conquer the potent aroma of hidden truth. The torchlight licks across the room, and the world tilts. On your left, a massive furnace, its brickwork still radiating a faint, unnatural warmth. Its chimney is a complex artery of copper pipes and glass tubes, stained with the residue of 100 unknown distillations. This is an alchemical furnace, more advanced than anything the condemned sorcerers were ever accused of building. 99% of people believe the church hunted alchemists to stamp out their dark art. The truth, you now realize, is that they were eliminating the competition. Your gaze drifts right, and you stop breathing. The history books tell you alchemy was a fool's errand, a charlatan's dream of turning lead into gold. What they don't want you to know is that the greatest alchemical discovery in history wasn't made by a man, and it had nothing to do with gold. It was a secret so powerful, the church had to burn a woman to steal it. The air in your cellar is thick with the sharp, acidic bite of vinegar and the ghost of sulfur. It's a forbidden perfume. Above, the world sleeps under the watchful eye of God and his priests. The fungi on the logs, the very leaves, all of it is now property. Your ancestral knowledge, the key to your survival, has just been made illegal. The book of the forest has been slammed shut, locked, and you have been declared a criminal for knowing how to read it. This is the secret that history class never teaches. This wasn't about conservation. 99% of people believe it was about protecting the king's hunt, but the dark truth is far more sinister. It was about breaking you. It was about destroying your independence. He is a man making a deal with the devil, or what his priests would call the devil, to save his bloodline. This is the timeless hypocrisy of power. It's the senator who preaches family values while hiding an affair, the televangelist who rails against greed while flying a private jet. The lie is essential for control. You open your satchel, not with holy water, but with willow bark, ground into a fine powder. You mix it with wine, a specific dilution. The physicians gasp. Sorcery, one hisses. You meet his gaze. Your silence is more powerful than his accusation. Then, for a price, they sold you the antidote. A splinter of bone, a scrap of cloth, a piece of a promise. The Vatican itself now quietly admits that over 99% of all holy relics from this period are forgeries. They built an empire on a foundation of lies and bone dust. You press the coin into the friar's sweaty palm. The clink, as it hits the others in his purse, is a sound of finality. He gives you the box, his duty done. You clutch it to your chest, the wood rough against your knuckles. A mark that changes the message from caution to all clear. It is a language of life and death, hidden in plain sight, a conspiracy of artisans. 99% of people who wander through Europe's great cathedrals today believe they are walking through sanctuaries of faith. They are mistaken. They are walking through the most sophisticated and daring library of forbidden knowledge ever created. Historians, using modern pattern recognition software to analyze the geometry and art of these structures, are now making a shocking discovery. The church didn't just burn the books of the old world. What they don't want you to know is that they kept the most dangerous ones for themselves. You follow the abbot, but your eyes are fixed on the heavy iron key in his hand. It's a key you have never seen, one that doesn't belong to the pantry, the scriptorium, or even the reliquary. He leads you past the slumbering forms of your brothers, their soft snores a gentle rhythm in the freezing dormitory. He stops not at a door, but at a section of the stone floor. Or, even better, the heretical texts that will ruin your enemy's name forever. The stone door groans, a sound of immense ancient protest as your men pry it open. The air that spills out isn't musty. It's cold, sterile, with a sharp metallic tang under the scent of old stone and something else, something chemical, faintly sweet. You take a torch and step across the threshold, downstairs slick with a strange, damp chill. This is not a treasury. This is not a library. Your heart begins to hammer a rhythm against your ribs that feels profane in the silence. They all seem to lead, path by hidden path, towards a single convergence point, high in a remote, mountainous region, a place marked not with a fish or a sheaf of wheat, but with a different symbol entirely, a serpent eating its own tail. This was never just about escape. Escape is scattered. This is a gathering. This is a pilgrimage to a new center of power. And a chilling question echoes in the stone silence of the crypt. What kind of heresy doesn't just want to survive? What kind of heresy has a destination? No army, no battle, just a man on a horse nailing a parchment to the old oak at the edge of the village. He doesn't speak to you. He doesn't have to. The wax seal of the king is its own language. Later, the priest reads it aloud, his voice flat and emotionless. The forest laws. They're not new, but they are newly enforced with a brutal clarity. The deer, of course, have always been the king's. But now, it's everything. The trees themselves, the fallen branches you'd gather for your fire, the roots in the ground. What they don't want you to know is that while they were blaming demons for disease, your teachers were mapping the human circulatory system. 99% of people believe a king's power is a gift from God. The truth is, it's a performance, a carefully staged piece of theater where the crown is the costume and the kingdom is the audience. Right now, the king is performing the role of the pious father, leading his nation in prayer. But in this secret, candlelit room, a mask is off. They created a supply chain of fraudulent hope, moving everything from splinters of the true cross to vials of the Virgin Mary's tears across Europe, selling them to wealthy nobles and terrified peasants alike. The church publicly condemned the practice with one hand while collecting the profits with the other. It's a business model so predatory, it feels disturbingly modern. It's like a pharmaceutical company engineering a virus and then selling the only impossibly expensive cure. The church sold the poison of eternal damnation, injecting it into every sermon, every prayer, every stained glass window. And most audaciously, you carve it into the heart of the enemy's fortress. You build their cathedrals. The mason leans in close to the gargoyle's face. To the priest, it's just a monster. To another craftsman, to someone who knows the code, the number of teeth signifies a date. The subtle twist of the horn points in the direction of a safe house in the warren of streets below. The mason takes up a fine-pointed chisel. You hear the soft, final scrape against the stone, an ASMR whisper of treason, as he adds one tiny, almost invisible mark beneath the creature's eye. How did women like Ilara share their life-saving knowledge, a thread of truth passed through a tapestry of lies, without being dragged to the center of the village and burned at the stake for witchcraft? The door creaks open. The shadow of the surgeon falls across your floor, long and thin like a scalpel. In your hand, hidden beneath the thin blanket, you feel the damp chill of the poultice she left for you. He is offering you a quick, torturous path to heaven. She offered you a chance at tomorrow, and you have to choose. The greatest lie the church ever told wasn't about the nature of God. It was about the nature of the devil. For centuries, they pointed to heretics in the shadows, whispered of forbidden knowledge exchanged in secret, and warned you of a network that sought to unravel God's dominion. And now, you are here to prove it. You are a bishop, flush with victory. Your rival's monastery seized for its debts, its lands and assets now yours. The monks swore the final, sealed cellar held nothing. But you know the greed of men, especially holy men. You expect gold. You look at the map, then back at the colossal vaulted ceilings above you, disappearing into shadow. All this power, all this wealth, all this faith, and it was blind. It was a host for a parasite it couldn't even feel. A conspiracy of whispers and symbols conducted in plain sight. But as your eyes scan the parchment one last time, a new, more disturbing truth emerges. The lines on the map are not just a web. They have a direction. The barns and mills are not random points of refuge. They are stations on a journey. It's not the sweet taste of the Lord's white bread, but it's the taste of survival. It's the flavor of defiance. You know which mushrooms push up through the rot after a hard rain, which tender nettles can be cooked into a stew to soothe a cough, which acorns can be leached of their bitterness to make a coarse, heavy flour. The forest is your larder, your apothecary, your sanctuary. It is the one place the Lord's power cannot fully reach. You are poor, but you are not helpless. Until the day it changes. It happens without a sound. You ignore them. You ignore the priests and their muttered condemnations. You gently peel back the sweat-soaked sheet. You do not begin with a prayer. You begin with observation. You lay 2 fingers on the boy's wrist, feeling the frantic, weak stutter of his pulse, a rhythm they do not know how to read. You touch his forehead, gauge the heat. You lift his eyelid and look at the color beneath. This is the forbidden knowledge, the science of the body, learned from ancient Arabic texts preserved in Cordoba and Baghdad while Europe slept in a fever of its own. What 99% of people will never understand is that this grubby, back-alley transaction wasn't an isolated scam. It was a single node in a vast criminal network sanctioned by the most powerful institution on earth. This was organized crime on a spiritual level. The secret ledgers of the Knights Templar, suppressed and burned after their spectacular downfall, don't just reveal their role as bankers to kings. They reveal something far more sinister. They were the world's most successful traffickers in high-end forged holy relics. A visiting priest, soft and pink, had praised the work yesterday, seeing only a grotesque monster, a testament to God's triumph over evil. The priest saw nothing else. He wasn't meant to. This is the secret that history books will never teach you. How do you fight an enemy that controls every word, every book, every pulpit? You don't write your rebellion down. You sing it in folk tunes, where the lyrics have double meanings. You weave it into the patterns of a woman's loom, a secret language of threads. It's the profit-driven dismissal of a cheap, natural alternative in favor of a treatment that lines pockets and reinforces the authority of institutions. The knowledge was there, shimmering just beneath the surface of their sanctioned reality. But it was a truth they were willing to kill to keep hidden. Now you must ask the question that hangs in the smoky air of your hovel. Who were these secret healers, these librarians of a forbidden natural world? And the men who orchestrated this crash, the new predators circling the carcass of the old world, are about to discover that some secrets, left unguarded, are worth infinitely more than a king's ransom. You can almost feel the ghost of one of them standing beside you in the dark. A man with calloused hands and a secret in his heart, chipping away at this stone to create a hidden postbox, a beacon of hope for the hunted. It's the same breathtaking irony that modern intelligence agencies face when they discover their own encrypted platforms, their own secure technologies, have been co-opted by the very terror cells they were designed to track. The hunter builds the most perfect cage, only to find the hunted have turned it into a sanctuary. This knowledge is your real inheritance, a treasure more valuable than gold, passed down through generations that survived because they knew the secrets of the earth. Your fingers, the nails permanently rimmed with black soil, dig into the damp ground. You can smell the rich, wet life of it. You pull, and with a soft tearing sound, the root comes free. Burdock. To the lords, it's a weed. To you, it's life. You rub the dirt from its coarse skin, imagining the bitter, earthy taste it will have when boiled. They look at you, at your plain clothes and the leather satchel in your hand, with open contempt. One of them holds a leech bowl, another a prayer book. They have bled the child, they have prayed over him, they have done everything their faith allows, and the prince is still dying. The king stands by the fire, his back to you. He doesn't turn. Can you save him? His voice is not a king's command. It's the broken whisper of a father. You move to the bed. The guards flinch as you approach the royal heir. You know, in the pit of your stomach where hunger and fear reside, that it's a fraud. It's probably a chicken bone dug from a trash heap. But desperation is a more powerful god than reason. You feel the single precious coin in your palm, the one you saved for a loaf of bread. Its metallic coolness is the only thing that feels real. You look at the friar's greedy eyes, at the fake piety carved into his face, and you see the truth of this world. Salvation isn't found, it's sold. Above you, wooden scaffolding clings to the half-finished vaults like a parasite's web. The only hymns here are the rhythmic chink, chink, chink of 100 chisels on stone and the low grunts of men hauling impossible weight. You watch the master mason. His name is not important. Names are dangerous. His hands are a geography of hardship, mapped with calluses and scarred knuckles, but his eyes hold a terrifying sharpness. He is working on a gargoyle, a creature of nightmare meant to spew rainwater and ward off demons. The barber surgeon is here, his cart loaded with leeches, knives, and the brazier for his irons. The priest is with him, his face a mask of pious certainty. You taste fear in your mouth, a sharp, coppery tang. Ilara's forbidden cure is working, but it is slow. The surgeon's cure is fast, agonizing, and approved by God himself. It's a pattern that echoes through our own time. The powerful convincing you that the simple, accessible solution is dangerous, while their own expensive, patented rituals are the only path to salvation. The Bardi Bank wasn't just the keeper of merchants' fortunes. It was the primary funder for a dozen of the oldest and most isolated monasteries in Tuscany. These were not just places of prayer. They were libraries of the damned and the divine, storehouses of knowledge the church itself had deemed too dangerous for the world. Pagan philosophies, pre-Christian medical texts, secrets of the old world. For centuries, their silence was bought, their isolation guaranteed by a steady flow of Florentine gold. Now that gold is gone. The walls of those monasteries are still high, but their vaults are empty. This map is a blueprint for a secret railroad, an underground network of safe houses for heretics, for those branded as devil worshippers, for anyone fleeing the long, brutal arm of the Inquisition. The Church, in its magnificent, unquestioning pride, had paid for the construction of its own enemy's communication system. The stonemasons, of course. Their guilds were the only ones who traveled freely, whose skills were so in demand They could cross borders and move between kingdoms without suspicion. They were the perfect messengers, carrying forbidden knowledge along with their tools, embedding secrets into the very architecture of their pursuers. But you are not afraid, not yet. You walk not with the desperation of the hungry, but with the quiet confidence of the knowledgeable. The forest floor is a living book, and you can read every page. Your grandmother taught you, her hands tough as bark, as she showed you which bright red berries were a gift from God and which were a kiss from the devil. Your father taught you to listen for the rustle of the wild boar, a sound that meant meat for a month. But dozens silver candlesticks burn, their light glinting off a golden crucifix on the wall. The air is thick, suffocating with the smell of incense, sweat, and sickness. In the center of it all is the bed, a mountain of silk and fur. And in that mountain, a small boy is drowning. His breaths are shallow, rasping things. A high, whistling sound escapes his lungs with every exhale. The sound of a fire consuming him from within. The royal physicians, robed in black, stand like crows in a dying field. From the folds of his robe, he produces a small, dark wooden box. The lid scrapes open with a dry, woody sound, a sound like old bones. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lies a splinter of yellowed bone. From the finger of St. Giles, he breathes, the lie sliding smoothly from his tongue. The protector of the weak, a prayer said over this relic, a donation to the church, of course, and it can shorten your time in purgatory by 100 years. Perhaps even spare your child from the devil's grasp. The church believed it was building monuments to God. What they didn't know, what they were truly financing, was the language of their own destruction, a secret etched into the very stones they blessed. You are standing in the hollow skeleton of a future cathedral. The air is alive, thick with the grit of pulverized limestone that coats your tongue and clings to the inside of your nostrils. Sunlight, raw and unfiltered by stained glass that doesn't yet exist, slants down in golden pillars, illuminating a blizzard of dust motes. It's a natural source of salicylic acid, the very soul of the aspirin that won't be discovered for another 600 years. This knowledge was never truly lost. It was hunted. Admitting a village woman with knowledge of herbs and molds could stop a deadly infection meant the church wasn't the sole arbiter of healing. It meant their prayers were not the only answer. It meant their power was a carefully constructed illusion. And illusions are fragile things. You can hear a metallic clatter from the street outside, the scraping of iron on cobblestone. But the forbidden knowledge, the truth they bury in the archives, is that the system isn't just fragile. It's being pushed by men who know exactly where it will break. Power isn't lost in a crash. It's simply transferred to fewer, more ruthless hands. As the sun begins to set, casting long, cruel shadows across the piazza, a new, colder fear begins to settle in your gut. It's a detail from that secret letter, a consequence the conspirators in Venice saw as a mere footnote. And then your blood runs cold. You see it, the star in a circle, the same symbol you once dismissed as a folk charm, carved into the lintel of a peasant's hovel. The same symbol you saw etched, almost invisibly, onto the base of a pillar, right here in this cathedral. The connections snap into place in your mind, like a row of falling stones, a cascade of terrifying understanding. This is the secret 99% of people who gaze up at these Gothic wonders will never know. They are not just monuments to God. They are message boards for God's enemies. The paintings show you two things: kings feasting and peasants starving. But there's a lie hidden in the brushstrokes, a secret they buried under centuries of oil and canvas. The truth is, starvation was rarely an act of God. It was an act of policy. And 99% of people who look at those paintings will never understand that the famine wasn't an accident. It was an invention. Right now, the ache in your stomach is a dull, familiar friend. The Lord's grain stores are locked. The tithe was taken, and the autumn harvest feels a lifetime away. The captain of the guard shoves you forward, his gauntlet a cold shock against your linen tunic. He doesn't look at you. Looking at you is a sin. He just points down the passage, his face a mask of grim duty. You can smell the fear on him, sharp and sour beneath the scent of old iron and leather. He is terrified of what the king has commanded, but he is more terrified of the king. You enter the royal bedchamber. It's a universe away from the dripping tunnel. Thick tapestries swallow the sound, depicting hunts and holy wars. Your daughter's cough echoes in your mind, a dry, rattling sound that sleep can't quiet. The priest said it was a punishment for your sins. A man in a friar's robe, smelling of sour wine and false piety, catches your eye. He beckons you closer with a crooked finger. "The Lord sees your suffering, child," he whispers, his voice a conspiratorial rasp. His eyes, however, don't look at you. They scan the crowd, looking for the guards. He pulls you deeper into the shadow of a butcher's stall, where pig carcasses hang like pale, headless ghosts. It's a silent, desperate transfer. They are coming to burn the library. But they do not know she has already smuggled out a page. The question that will haunt you for the rest of your life is born in that moment. Her body will be ash by morning. But what about her knowledge? How could it possibly survive the fire? Her name is Alara. She didn't carry a cross. She carried a small, damp cloth pouch that smelled of earth and river water. Recently re-examined texts, salvaged from the ashes of burned monasteries, describe exactly what she knows. Inside that pouch is a poultice of moldy bread, a secret source of penicillin passed down through whispers from mother to daughter. She gave you a bitter tea, brewed from the bark of a willow tree. You can feel it now, a gentle coolness spreading through your limbs, the fire behind your eyes dimming to a manageable ember. You can almost hear it, the ASMR of this financial coup, the wet, final stamp of a notary's seal invalidating a loan, the crisp rustle of ledgers being bought for pennies on the florin by agents of the men who started the fire. This isn't a forgotten chapter of medieval economics. It is the blueprint for every market crash you will ever read about. It's the ghost of 2008, of 1929, played out with quills and couriers instead of algorithms and fiber optics. It's the story they always tell you, that the system is just fragile. You carefully break the ancient seal, and the sound is a tiny, final exhale of air trapped since the 13th century. The parchment enrolls in your trembling hands. It's not a prayer. It's not a blueprint. It's a map. The lines are drawn in faded ink, charting the surrounding region of rivers and forests. But where the towns and castles should be, there are other marks. An isolated barn, a watermill on a forgotten tributary, a tiny disused chapel deep in the woods, and beside each mark, a small, meticulously drawn symbol, a fish, a sheaf of wheat, and it is just beginning. The most powerful man in the kingdom is about to commit treason against his own God, and it's the only thing that can save him. The stones are slick with a cold, weeping dampness. You press your back against them, trying to make your own breath silent. Above, you hear the faint, hollow drone of 100 courtiers praying in the great hall. They are praying for a miracle. You are the miracle, and if they ever find you here, they will burn you for it. They told you faith could move mountains. What they didn't want you to know is that a single coin could buy you a piece of heaven. The stench of the market is a physical thing, a wall you walk through. It's the sweet, sick perfume of rotting cabbages and discarded fish heads, a smell so familiar you barely notice it anymore. But today it's cut by something holy, the thick, cloying smoke of incense from a religious procession winding its way down the main thoroughfare. You shrink back into an alley, the damp stone chilling your skin through your thin tunic. They torched a world where female wisdom was a source of sovereign power. You look from the priest's furious face back to the woman by your hearth, now packing her herbs into small leather pouches. Her eyes meet yours, and in them, you see no fear. You see a quiet, heartbreaking resolve. She knows the wood is already being gathered. She knows the whispers in the market have turned to accusations. She is a dead woman walking. But as she hands you a small, tightly wrapped packet of dried leaves, her fingers press into your palm, hard. While the church promotes bleeding you into a pale, submissive ghost, they are actively destroying centuries of real, effective medical knowledge. 99% of people believe medieval medicine was a horror show of ignorance, but the real horror was the systematic suppression of cures that actually worked. It was a targeted campaign to discredit the practical and elevate the divine, ensuring that they, and only they, held the keys to life and death. Last night, she came, the woman from the edge of the village, the one they call a hedge witch when they think no one is listening. For months, whispers were seeded in the markets of Genoa and Venice, rumors of insolvency carried by paid agents on trading ships. They were lies, expertly crafted to create a tremor of doubt. Then came the short, rival banking houses, secretly backed by a shadowy faction in the Vatican that resented Florence's power, began betting against the Bardi and Peruzzi. They used their own vast reserves to trigger a panic, fueling the very bank run they predicted. You press your palm against the cold, unyielding stone of the bank's facade, feeling the vibrations of the chaos behind you. The sound is like sandpaper on bone, a dry, grating scrape that feels obscenely loud in the sacred silence. You pull. It resists. Then, with a soft groan of protest, the stone comes free in your hands. You expect a dark cavity, maybe the forgotten niche for a saint's knucklebone. But there, nestled in a hollow carved with incredible precision, is a tube of rolled parchment, sealed at both ends with dark, brittle wax. Your breath catches. This is the moment historians dream of. Suddenly, there is a sharp rap on your door. Not the watchman, not the gravedigger. It's a sequence. 3 quick knocks, a pause, then 2 more. The signal. The one described at the very bottom of the physician's page. It means another has survived. It means the network is growing. But it also means you must open the door. You must risk everything, not for God, but for the fragile, blasphemous idea of a future built by human hands. Surviving the plague was the test. Surviving the men who want the cure buried is the war. And the price? The price was a promise to keep a secret far more dangerous than mere mathematics. And the church, the only organization left standing, was there to inherit it all. The secret wasn't just that they let the plague happen, it's what they gained from every single death. It's a tactic so effective, it never went away. You see its shadow today, when a woman in politics or business gains too much influence and is suddenly targeted by smear campaigns, branded as shrill, unlikable, or a nasty woman. They attack her character, not her competence, using emotion and slander to erode her authority. It is the modern echo of the same ancient fear. A powerful woman who does not need their permission to lead. They didn't just burn women, they burned a library of living knowledge. You can almost feel it already. The searing, holy kiss of a hot iron against your infected wound, a pain so white and absolute, it burns away thought. There is no anesthetic, only the priest's droning words and the screams of those who came before you, ghosts that haunt the very air you breathe. This is the lie they built their cathedrals on. What they don't want you to know is that this agony is a choice. Not your choice, theirs. This performance of suffering is a deliberate strategy of control. It was the excuse. It was the public story crafted for public consumption, a simple narrative with a foreign villain to absorb the rage of thousands of men just like you. The truth is infinitely more terrifying. It's in a piece of correspondence you saw last week, a letter from a Venetian contact meant for a rival family, a letter you were never supposed to read. It spoke not of fear, but of opportunity, not of collapse, but of consolidation. This wasn't a failure, it was a hostile takeover. The only sound is the gentle hiss of your lantern and the damp echo of your own breath. Your fingers, numb and dusty, trace the joints of a section of wall that has been untouched for centuries. And then you feel it. A give, a looseness that shouldn't be there. It's a flicker of wrongness in a place defined by permanence. Curiosity, that dangerous human spark, takes over. You press again. The stone shifts, with your heart starting to beat a little faster. You work your fingernails into the crumbling mortar. You touch the strange, smooth surface of a bar of soap the physician's instructions told you how to make from ash and animal fat. It feels like a holy relic from the future. 99% of people will never learn this. They will die believing God hated them. But you know better. This knowledge is a spark in a world of darkness. You are not just a person hiding from a disease. You are the keeper of a forbidden flame, a member of a secret network of survivors connected only by smuggled notes and a shared dangerous belief in reason. Instead, he guides your hand to the underside of the great stone block, a place that will be sealed in darkness for 1,000 years. His finger traces a small, elegant symbol carved deep into the rock. It is not a cross. It is not Latin. It looks like flowing script from a land of sand and sun. It was never truly lost, he whispers, his voice trembling with the weight of the confession. It was kept safe by scholars in Cordoba, in Baghdad, men the Pope calls infidels. We did not rediscover this knowledge, boy. We traded for it. It finds a world perfectly prepared for it, a population weakened and living in a filth that was not accidental, but engineered. You watch your neighbors die, clutching crucifixes, their bodies racked with a sickness they were told was God's judgment for their sins. They pray for a salvation offered by the same institution that systematically dismantled their most basic public defense. But this manufactured crisis wasn't just about controlling souls through fear. It was about something far more tangible. Because as millions died, their land, their gold, their worldly goods were left behind. Modern archaeology, digging at the sites of executed witches' homes, has uncovered the truth. They haven't found pentagrams or cauldrons bubbling with toads' eyes. They've found caches of medicinal herbs, poppy for pain, belladonna for spasms, ergot for childbirth. They've unearthed surprisingly sophisticated tools for midwifery, instruments for setting bones. These women weren't worshipping evil. They were a parallel power structure. By labeling their practical knowledge as heresy, the Church and the Lords could perform a gruesome civic surgery, cutting influential women out of the community and instilling a deep, permanent fear of female authority. The sickness, they told you, was a punishment from God, a righteous trial for a sinful soul. But as you lie shivering on the straw pallet, a fire behind your eyes and ice in your veins, you know this isn't righteousness, it's just pain. The priest has already been. He smelled of incense and judgment, his prayers a dry rustle in the dark, promising salvation for your soul while your body is consumed. He says the only cure is penance, faith, and the barber surgeon's merciful hand. You know what that means. They are building a new, digital dark age where truth is only what they allow it to be. They buried the secrets of the past to control the present. They lied about then. What else are they lying about now? A man beside you, a dyer whose hands are permanently stained indigo, slides down the wall and weeps into his knees. The official story is already taking root, spreading through the crowd like a fever. A herald, his voice cracking, screams it from the steps of the Palazzo Vecchio. The King of England, that faithless monarch across the sea, has defaulted on his colossal war loans. He has broken the pillars of Florence. He has murdered your future. But what 99% of the people screaming in this square will never know is that the king's default wasn't the cause. The church believed its cathedrals were fortresses of faith, built to scrape the heavens and proclaim their immutable power. They were wrong. They were Trojan horses, funded by the devout and built by the defiant. And the secret was mortared into the very stones. You are here 3 years ago, but the air is 1,000 years old. It's the deep, wet cold of a crypt in northern France. A cold that seeps through your wool coat and settles in your bones. The restoration project has been slow, tedious work. You are tired. It's the same cold pit in your stomach that a person feels centuries from now when they see clear data ignored because it contradicts a preferred political narrative. The truth that humanity had the tools to fight back was a threat to the church's power. If prayer wasn't the answer, then their authority was a sham. Fear was their currency, and a cure would bankrupt them. A floorboard creaks in the room where your wife lies sleeping. Her breath is shallow, but it is steady. It was lost. If the church buried this knowledge, if the books were burned, how did the guild find it again? Elias goes still. The easy confidence drains from his face, replaced by a deep, ancient caution. He looks around into the vast, dark emptiness of the unfinished nave, as if the ghosts of those who failed to keep the secret are listening from the shadows. He leans in close, his breath smelling of ale and wood smoke. He doesn't point to a hidden scroll or a secret book. And you are left outside, in the growing filth. The ASMR of history changes. The gentle splash of the bathhouse is replaced by a new sound, the wet, sucking squelch of your leather shoes sinking into streets that are now more open sewer than thoroughfare. The clean scent of steam is replaced by the throat-catching stench of human waste and rot. They took your bath, and in its place, they gave you a plague. When the Black Death arrives, It is not a surprise. It is an inevitability. He calls her healing a diabolical trick to steal souls. And you understand, he isn't afraid of the devil. He's afraid of her. He is afraid of a power he does not grant and cannot control. Her knowledge of the earth threatens his monopoly on the heavens. In a world built on obedience to a single male authority, a woman who can command life and death with a handful of leaves is a queen on a rival throne. This is the secret they buried with the ashes. The knowledge you guard is not meant to be kept, but to be shared. The fear is still there, a cold knot in your stomach, but underneath it, something else sparks to life. A fierce, defiant heat. They think you are nothing more than mud and sweat. Tonight, you will walk through the dark and prove them wrong. You must decide, in the space of a single heartbeat, if you will remain a secret keeper or become a conspirator. The ignorant peasant, the savage Viking, all were characters in a play written to consolidate an empire built on a lie. This is the ultimate conspiracy because it's the one that rewrote our past. And now, you must look around. The cold stone of the monastery has been replaced by the cold glow of a screen. The scrolls in the secret library are now servers in a climate-controlled vault. A new elite is in charge of your information. Big tech, media conglomerates, and governments are curating your reality, suppressing inconvenient narratives, and creating new heretics, the conspiracy theorist, the purveyor of misinformation. The heavy oak doors of the Bardi Bank slam shut with a sound like the world ending. A deep, final thud that echoes across the piazza, silencing the panicked shouts for a half-second before they erupt again, a tidal wave of human despair. You stand frozen, the cold dread a metallic taste on your tongue. The wool contracts, the shipping manifests, the letters of credit, every scrap of paper that represented your life's work, your father's work before you, is now just kindling inside that stone tomb. They are worthless. You are ruined. And as you stand here, in a city built by the ghosts of these master craftsmen and global merchants, you have to wonder, if a lie this big could stand for a millennium, what other truths did they bury with the bodies? They bricked the doors and windows shut, entombing the sick and the healthy inside together. A monstrous act of pragmatism. The city's death rate was a fraction of Paris's. They proved that human action, not divine favor, was the key to cheating the Reaper. You feel a cold dread, a feeling that has nothing to do with the plague. It's the chilling realization that the people meant to guide you, the voices of God on earth, are either wrong or they are lying. The analysis of this very cathedral, centuries from now, will show a mathematical precision that official history says shouldn't have been possible. You stare at the master's rope, now coiled at his feet like a sleeping serpent. The knowledge is a heavy cloak, and you feel its weight settle on your young shoulders. It is exhilarating and terrifying. You have been given the keys to a hidden kingdom. But a new question, darker and more urgent, begins to form in the cold air between you. Master, you say, your voice barely audible above the wind. The Romans knew this. Then it's the same dark magic used centuries later to make people fear life-saving medicine, to convince them that their intuition is more valuable than generations of science. They make you vulnerable, then sell you the only cure, their absolute authority. You feel the change week by week. The bathhouse, once a hub of community, is now half empty, haunted by whispers and sidelong glances. Then, one day, the doors are barred, the windows boarded. A decree is nailed to the wood. declaring it a place of moral contagion. The war is over. The church has won. She speaks of poultices and tinctures, of knowledge passed from her mother and her mother before that, a chain of wisdom stretching back into the mist of time, unbroken until now. But on Sunday, you taste iron. The metallic tang of fear coats your tongue as the priest stands at the pulpit, his voice a hammer pounding the air. He doesn't use her name. He doesn't have to. He speaks of a darkness festering in the heart of your village, of old ways that mock God's law. He calls her wisdom Satan's whisper. The silence stretches, broken only by the drip of rainwater through a weak spot in the roof. A slow, steady rhythm counting down your life. Then you hear it. It's not a footstep. It's a sound that doesn't belong in the dead of a winter night. The short, sharp call of a wren. 3 quick notes. No wren sings in the dark, in the cold. It's the signal. Your heart hammers against your ribs, a frantic bird trapped in your chest. The symbol wasn't just a comfort tonight. It was a reminder. A meeting is happening. Now, the heretic burning at the stake, the witch drowned in the river, the pagan with his sacred groves torn down. They weren't the enemy. They were the excuse, the necessary sacrifices to justify the destruction of the old world's wisdom. They drove science and reason underground, only to monopolize it for themselves in the secret basements of their monasteries, becoming the sole gatekeepers of truth. That symbol wasn't the mark of rebellion. It was the brand of their project to consolidate all human knowledge and power. But what he doesn't know, what 99% of the world will never know, is what you wrote on the final, hidden page, stitched into the very leather of the binding. A cipher, a key, a last piece of the formula meant not for him, but for the person who would one day understand that the greatest discoveries aren't always found in the light. They are found in the ashes of the women they tried to burn. They were a future that Christian kings and bishops could not allow to exist. Their ships didn't just carry swords, they carried a different way of seeing the world. And to the powers that be, a new idea has always been more dangerous than a new weapon. They had to be erased, not just from the map, but from memory. This is the secret that changed everything. Buried in the municipal records of cities like Milan, a truth the church fought for centuries to suppress, is the data from a horrific, accidental experiment. It was a 14th century A/B test for survival. In cities like Paris and London, they followed the priests. They prayed, they gathered, they died in droves, their streets flowing with the dead. But in Milan, the authorities committed a terrible, beautiful sin. They listened to the physicians. When a house showed the first sign of infection, they walled it up. Like a modern tech giant hiding its core algorithm, the guild's knowledge allows them to create wonders the nobility cannot replicate, and the church cannot comprehend. It is why they are not mere laborers, but masters of a mystery, sought by kings and cardinals who pay in gold for a perfection they believe is a gift from heaven, never suspecting it is a triumph of the human mind. The metallic taste of fear rises in your throat. You are part of a conspiracy of reason, a secret order of thinkers in an age that punishes thought. You begin to hear it everywhere, in the square, in the church, from the mouths of traveling friars. The body is a prison of sin. To pamper it is to praise the devil. Sickness is the voice of God, calling the sinner to repent. They are rewriting reality, one soul at a time, It's a chillingly familiar strategy, a kind of medieval disinformation campaign. They create a public health crisis by sowing distrust in proven, practical knowledge. They take a simple truth, that cleanliness helps prevent sickness, and rebrand it as a moral failing. Her hands, stained green with chlorophyll and brown with earth, are unbelievably gentle as she wipes your son's brow with a cool, damp cloth. The wet, rhythmic rasp of his fevered breathing has finally softened to a gentle sigh. You watch her grind willow bark in a stone mortar, the rhythmic scrape and thump, a sound more reassuring than any prayer. She adds a pinch of something from a dried bundle hanging from the rafters and mixes it with honey, a forbidden sweetness. She doesn't speak in tongues or incantations. It's the 12th century version of a dismissive headline designed to make the powerful feel safe and the powerless feel alone. You hold your breath, listening. Is that a footstep on the muddy track outside? The metallic taste of fear floods your mouth, cold and sharp. The Lord's Reeve has eyes everywhere. He looks for any sign of prosperity, an extra chicken, a mended cloak, as an excuse for another tax, another turn of the screw. But to find this would not be a tax. This would be a question asked with hot iron. The symbol you saw etched into the stone, the whispers you heard in the dark, the secrets you thought belonged to the resistance. You were wrong. The stunning, sickening truth settles in your gut like a cold stone. There was no Dark Age, not a 1,000-year accident where knowledge was simply misplaced. It was a demolition, a deliberate, centuries-long campaign, a great medieval reset, orchestrated by the Church's inner sanctum to seize control of reality itself. They didn't fear forbidden knowledge. They coveted it. They drag you from your sanctuary. The cold night air is a shock after the heat of your fires. You don't scream. You don't beg. A desperate hope burns hotter than their accusations. They think they are destroying you. They think they are seizing your knowledge. But they are men who believe in a single holy book. They don't understand that a book, your book, has a will of its own. The abbot clutches it to his chest, a trophy won. The sagas the church scribes wrote weren't history. They were a deliberate campaign to justify holy war. It's the oldest trick in the conqueror's playbook, a strategy that echoes through every major conflict in modern history. You don't just defeat your enemy, you must first turn them into a monster. You dehumanize them, caricature them, erase their art, their trade, their city planning, their humanity, until all that remains is a savage you can slaughter without sin. You make the world believe they are a plague, so that no one mourns their eradication. The Vikings weren't just warriors. It's the forbidden knowledge. The words of a renegade physician from Padua, a man the church has branded a devil. What he preaches is not piety, but a dangerous, world-shattering idea, protocol. He says the pestilence is not a spirit, but something that travels between people. It clings to clothes, lives in the breath, hides in the dust of a room. His instructions are a blasphemy against God's plan. Seal your home. Let no one in or out. Wash your hands and face with vinegar water. Boil every drop you drink. Use herbs not for prayer, but to fumigate the air. And that, my boy, that is a terrifying threat to a world built on blind faith. He lets the rope go slack. To them, this is not divine order. It is a devil's trick. It is sorcery. The bishop marvels at our work, but if he knew how we achieved it, he would see us burned as heretics before the first Mass was ever sung in this hall. You finally understand. This secret isn't just about building cathedrals. It's about power. It's the source code to their entire existence. His voice, dry as old parchment, slices through the warm, damp air. He doesn't shout. He doesn't have to. Vanity, he intones, his eyes sweeping over the naked bodies. You wash the skin, but you stain the soul. You gather here in sinful nakedness, inviting the demons of lust to feast upon your weakness. The laughter dies. The splashing stops. There is only the drip, drip, drip of water, like a clock ticking down to a colder, dirtier age. This is not a lone fanatic. This is policy. A secret war declared not with swords, but with sermons. What they don't want you to know is that the woman they call a witch is the only reason your child is still breathing. 99% of the women condemned for sorcery weren't whispering to devils. They were the village's only doctors, its therapists, its silent leaders. And their power was a threat that had to be extinguished. You are there now, not at a pyre, but by a hearth. The air is thick with the scent of wood smoke and crushed thyme. It is a node in a web of knowledge that stretches from your hovel to the next village, and the next, a silent, stubborn network of shared truth. This is how you survive, not by the grace of your Lord, but by the forbidden wisdom of your grandmother, passed down not in writing, but in symbols, in stories, in the quiet rebellion of staying alive. This is a truth so dangerous, they would burn a village to stamp it out. The label of ignorant peasant isn't an observation, it's a cage. And now, you see the board for the first time. The only question is, what is your next move? The systematic erasure of women from the ledgers of discovery isn't some abstract historical trend. It's happening to you right now. It's the abbot's polite smile as he condemns your soul while his eyes steal your life's work. He sees your genius, and he knows the world will only accept it if it comes from a man of God. He will take your book, publish it under his name, and be hailed as a visionary. You will be held up as an example of female corruption, a cautionary tale whispered by mothers to their daughters. He was born from the tip of a monk's quill, an invention of total and brilliant propaganda. 99% of what we know about the Vikings comes directly from their mortal enemies, the Christian churchmen whose lands they plundered and whose faith they mocked. The historical record isn't a window into the Viking world. It's a weapon forged against it. This is the secret they have hidden in plain sight for 1,000 years. The Vikings were not just a nuisance. They were a rival civilization. They were pagans, a successful, expanding, sophisticated alternative to Christian Europe. You can hear the wet, heavy thump as a neighbor's body is added to the pile. You knew them. You shared bread with them last month. Now they are just meat for the plague pits. The priest told you this was their reward for insufficient faith. He told you to open your home, to pray with the afflicted, to accept God's will. But on your table, lit by a single sputtering tallow candle, is a different kind of scripture. It's not a holy book. It's a smuggled page, copied in haste. The ink smudged by a trembling hand. Mathematics supposedly lost since the fall of Rome, dismissed by the clergy as the dark arts of the heathens. Why is it a secret, Master? You ask, the question you've been burning to ask for years. If it is God's own fingerprint, why must we hide it? Elias looks at you, and for a moment, the torchlight catches a glint of profound sadness in his eyes. Because it proves that we can find God's mind without a priest to guide us. It proves that human reason, our reason, can touch the sublime. It's a luxury for a few coins, a ritual of being human, of being clean. Archaeological evidence proves this wasn't a fantasy. Hundreds of these bathhouses dotted the cities of Europe. 99% of people have no idea they even existed. They believe a lie, a comfortable myth designed to make the past seem primitive and our present enlightened. But the truth is, your ancestors knew how to be clean. They were just told not to be. The air shifts. A shadow falls across the steam. A priest stands at the entrance, his face a mask of pious disgust. They are desperately trying to learn what the heretics already know. 99% of people who read the histories believe this lie, because the histories were written by the predator's scribes. But they don't know about the star under the floor. They don't know that this isn't just decoration. It is a map, a mnemonic device. It holds the secrets to the lunar cycles for planting, not the ones the priest reads out from his Latin book, but the real ones, the ones that work. It holds the formula for a poultice that can draw the infection from a wound, using herbs the church would call witchcraft. The church wasn't fighting the network. The church's secret inner circle was the network. The heretics, the witches, the wise women with their poultices and forbidden lore, they were a smokescreen, a convenient public enemy created to distract the world while the true power consolidated the very knowledge it claimed to abhor. You came here a predator, a bishop hungry for gold and a rival's ruin. But standing in the chilling glow of this terrible truth, you understand. You were never the hunter. You were just a pawn in a game you never knew you were playing. Recipes that read like a sorcerer's grimoire, but are, in fact, precise chemical formulae. He sees the cures you've documented, the fevers broken, the wounds that closed without a trace of pus. He sees a power greater than any relic his church holds. The Lord works in mysterious ways, he says, his voice a smooth, polished stone. But this is the work of something else. You feel the metallic taste of fear in your mouth, sharp and cold. This isn't a theological debate. It's an acquisition, a hostile takeover. The ground beneath your feet is not paved with the bones of the English. It is packed earth, firm from the passage of merchants from Baghdad, slave traders from Dublin, and explorers who have seen rivers of ice in a land that will one day be called Canada. This is not a raiders' camp. It is a metropolis. So where is the barbarian? Where is the mindless savage who lives only to burn and defile? He doesn't live here. He lives in the pages of a book, written hundreds of miles away, in the sterile silence of a monastery. Your windows are shuttered, the door bolted from within. A crude red cross, painted by the watchman days ago, marks this house as a tomb. But it is not a tomb. Not yet. Outside you hear it, the sound that has replaced the bird song and the market chatter, the slow, rhythmic rumble of the death cart's wheels and the grave digger's call, a song with only 2 words, bring out. You press your ear against the rough wood of the door, feeling the vibrations in your teeth. Your fingernails scrape against the rough-hewn surface as you steady yourself, the sound like a rat scurrying in the dark. This is the forbidden knowledge. 99% of the people who will one day fill this sacred space, their upturned faces awash in the light from the stained glass, will believe it was built on prayer and piety alone. They will never know that the true architecture is a sequence of numbers, a divine language the church has forgotten how to speak, or worse, has purposefully silenced. The Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio. The air is thick with heat and the sound of life. The murmur of 100 conversations, the rhythmic splash of water, the laughter of a merchant telling a bawdy joke. This is a cathedral of the body, a Roman dream still breathing in the heart of the Middle Ages. You sink deeper into the warm water, the grit and grime of the week dissolving from your pores. You watch a stonemason scrub his calloused hands with a rough beige block of soap, a potent mixture of animal fat and wood ash that stings before it soothes. They create a public narrative of ignorance and scarcity, while secretly monopolizing the very information that could set the world free. They have cornered the market on truth, but as you scan the shelves, a colder realization settles in your gut. They aren't just looking for ways to build better cathedrals or debate philosophy. They are hunting for something specific, a single thread connecting all this forbidden knowledge. And the clue lies not in the books themselves, but in the people they hunt with such ferocity above ground. They aren't just silencing the heretics. The scraping of the rough-hewn wood against the packed dirt floor is a sound so faint, it's more a feeling in your teeth than a noise in your ears. This is the great lie, the one they build their castles upon. They tell the world, and they tell you, that you are simple, ignorant, a beast of the field, no different from the ox that pulls the plow. Only you can speak a few crude words. It's a convenient story, isn't it? The same way a predator might convince its prey that it's too slow to run. They preached faith in the next life while working feverishly to master this one. Your foot scuffs against something. You lower the torch. There, inlaid into the flagstones of the floor, is the symbol. The star inside the circle, but this is no simple signet ring etching. It is massive, a dozen feet across, crafted from black and white marble, its geometric lines impossibly complex and perfect. It is a declaration. This is not some rogue outpost. This is a headquarters. This is the center of the web, and the final, soul-shattering truth falls upon you like a shroud. Abbot Theron fills the doorway, his robes smelling of incense and power, a scent that makes the clean, sharp air of your laboratory feel suddenly foul. He doesn't look at you with the fear of a man seeing a witch. He looks at you with the sharp, cold eyes of a merchant appraising an asset. His gaze sweeps past you, past the bubbling retorts and strange glass coils, and lands on your book. The book. Vellum pages filled with diagrams of a fractional distillation column he couldn't possibly understand. You hear the sharp, satisfying hiss as he plunges a glowing axe head into a barrel of murky water. A tool for clearing a forest, not just cleaving a skull. From an open doorway drifts the sweet, resinous scent of amber being polished, its thousand-year journey from a distant Baltic shore, ending here in the patient hands of a craftsman. The greatest lie ever told was not whispered in a king's ear. It was screamed from every pulpit as the world was dying. The lie was that the great pestilence was God's final judgment, an apocalypse you could only meet with prayer. And 99% of the world believed it. They gathered in churches to beg for mercy, their desperate breaths mingling, turning holy ground into a factory for ghosts. But you are a heretic. You are a survivor. The air in your small home is thick enough to drink, a bitter cocktail of fear, boiling vinegar, and burning rosemary. With a few deft movements, he loops the rope, pulling it taut to form a perfect triangle. He gestures for you to look. No tools from the carpenter's bench, no clumsy measures from the merchants. Just the proportion, The same ratio you see in the spiral of a snail's shell, in the seeds of a sunflower, in the shape of the galaxy of stars above our heads. You can feel the cold stone through your thin tunic, the vibration of his words seeming to hum within it. The plague didn't have to kill half of Europe. The cure wasn't a lost potion or a forgotten prayer. It was a simple, steaming public bath, and the church buried the knowledge, branding it a sin. You are in 13th century Paris, but not the one you've been shown. Not the city of mud and misery. Here, in the Etuve, the public bathhouse, steam rises to kiss your skin, smelling faintly of herbs and lye. Notes are scrawled in the margins, in the abbot's own hand, cross-referencing a Greek theory of matter with a passage from a banned Gnostic text. They are not guarding against evil. They are reverse engineering the past to control the future. It's the same tactic powerful institutions have always used. It's the modern government classifying data on technologies that could liberate humanity from fossil fuels. It's the pharmaceutical company that knows a simple plant could cure a disease, but pushes its own expensive synthetic pill instead. The hunger in your belly is a dull, familiar drum, a rhythm you've known since birth. This is the life they have written for you, a life of mud, toil, and obedience. You are a serf, tied to this land like a goat to a post. Your work, your children, even the thatch over your head, it belongs to the Lord. But this symbol, this belongs to you, to us. You slide the floorboard back, your movements practiced and silent. This is a laboratory, dedicated to unlocking the very secrets of life and death they condemn as the devil's work. The search for a cure to the plague, for the extension of life, perhaps for immortality itself. It wasn't happening on the fringes of society. It was happening right here, in the sanctified heart of the church's power. It's the same quiet ambition that drives men today, the tech billionaire seeking to reverse aging, the geneticist mapping the code of life, the desire to become a god cloaked in the robes of piety. It is the distilled essence of a dozen herbs, a process of separation and recombination that took you 10 years to perfect. It can halt the wasting sickness. It can clear the lungs of the choking rot. It is the closest thing to a miracle man has ever made without the help of heaven. And he has heard of your miracles. The heavy thud on the cellar door isn't the familiar rap of the sick or the desperate. It's the sound of authority. The horned helmet is a lie. Most of us know that by now. But what they don't want you to know is that the man beneath the imaginary horns, he is the real lie. A ghost story told by the victors to haunt the conscience of the world. You are standing in the heart of that lie, the city of Jorvik. The air doesn't smell of blood and conquest. It smells of life. The rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer echoes down the muddy street, a sound of creation, not destruction. You wedge the tiny scroll deep into a crack between two stones in the passage wall. A message in a bottle, cast into an ocean of time. A secret for a secret, a life for a lie. The king has his miracle, but you have left the truth behind, a seed of reason, planted in the cold, hard stone of faith, waiting for the light. His face, a roadmap of sun-baked wrinkles, is illuminated by a single, sputtering torch. He holds not a rule, not a measure, but a length of heavy rope, thick with 12 evenly spaced knots. They see a miracle, he whispers, his voice a low rumble that is nearly stolen by the gale. They see the hand of God lifting these stones into the sky. They are fools. You watch his gnarled fingers, stained with a lifetime of limestone grit. He lays the rope on the massive stone block that will cap the archway tomorrow. What forbidden truth was so powerful, so world-altering, that thousands of people would risk being burned alive just to keep it from being forgotten? Next to it, an Arabic text on optics, full of heretical ideas about light and vision. You see Greek philosophical treatises that question the very nature of the soul, works by men they call pagans, whose wisdom they publicly condemn as demonic. This is the ultimate institutional hypocrisy. This is the source code for civilization, and they've hidden it from the world. They aren't just hoarding these books, they are studying them. On a heavy wooden table, a manuscript lies open. The price for knowing this symbol isn't measured in silver. It is paid in silence, or it is paid on the pyre. Your finger finishes tracing the last line of the star, a perfect six-pointed shape held within the unforgiving circle. It feels alive under your skin, a secret language humming in the wood. Outside, the wind howls a familiar, lonely song against the wattle and daub walls of your hovel. The air is a thick soup of smells, damp earth, the last of the wood smoke from the central hearth, and the ghost of boiled cabbage.